Wonderful. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the penultimate She Owns It. Very excited for today. So today we are joined by Izzy Pantone. Hi, Izzy. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, great, thank you. And very, very excited today to get into the power of networking and personal brand. I've got a few questions, a few activities for everybody else. So, yeah, I feel like this session is basically for people who have been told to like put yourself out there and go and network. And it's like, what does that even mean? And
Mm.
you sort of left hanging and then you just like crawl back into the hole. So, let's get into that. Just to give everyone a quick, brief intro into you, Izzy, and then I'll hand it over to you to kind of expand on that. So, Izzy is the voice behind Corporate Agony Aunt, which I absolutely love following, by the way. So, definitely give her a follow. She is the commercial lead at The Overlap and also someone who really understands that your voice is your power, whether you're on a panel or whether you're leading a panel or whether you're just trying to kind of figure it out as you go along and sort your LinkedIn out. So, Izzy, I'm going to hand it over to you to just tell us a bit more about you and how you got to where you are today.
Thank you. Nice to meet you all. Thank you so much for having me. As Robin said, sort of my career trajectory today, I would say, has been quite a quick one that I've been able to be quite proud of. I'm unapologetic in saying that I've been quite successful despite some sort of adversities along the way, which isn't a very woman thing to say. And I'm just going to say it with my chest because I am proud of the career that I've had. But what I will say is that a huge part of that success has been understanding the power of networks. And I'm able to call myself a sort of super connector now, if you will. My favorite thing to do is to connect person A to person B with no expectation on anything back from that, but it's always yielded something further down the line in my career. So I think networking and putting yourself out there and personal branding and self-promotion has such a huge stigma attached to it. It makes us feel like we're boasting and it makes us feel uncomfortable. But in actual fact, if we just boil it down to how we can operationalize that at a local level in our careers, it's something as simple as helping someone from the marketing department connect with someone in the finance department and using the agency that you might have internally at work and then externally in your greater network or locally in your community or bigger than that within your social group to really build your reputation that is consistent with you personally and professionally, so that you never feel like a fraud when you do this self-promotion piece. It's just natural to who you are and staying true to who you are personally and professionally.
That is such a good point, and I never really thought of it like that. You're almost networking even just within your own ecosystem of the teams, like this team and that team. So and I think that if you see it like that, then you feel slightly less uncomfortable doing it on the next level stage because it's like, well, I do this every day, which we obviously all just do naturally.
I think if you change your mindset to networking as you're not selling, you're not trying to put yourself forward, you're not trying to ask and ask and ask. You're giving as much as you can, as many times as you can, so that one day when you need to take something, when you need to capitalize on your network, you can. And I think people look at networking as quite contrived and maybe a little bit insincere. And the perception of that is that to network, you have to go to an event. But I think let's destigmatize it. Let's make it feel much more local. Let's make it feel like when we talk to the lady on the checkout at Asda, and then actually we humanize it a little bit more. But yeah, networking is more about how you can put stuff out into the world that may or may not yield something further down the line, but is a really good safety net for you and will drive a sort of peace of mind and security that jobs cannot offer us. I think our perception is that job security can be achieved. We passed our 2-year sort of probation term. We're set for life, but there's nothing to say there's not a redundancy, a restructure, or a change of heart around the corner. So for me, my network is more about the power that it brings me and the peace it brings me when I sleep at night, knowing that if I was to lose a job today or if my circumstances were to change tomorrow, that I would have a group of people to lean on, to ask for help, to ask for introduction should I need it.
And it's funny actually because when I first started following you, I was like, oh, this is bold, because I was thinking, obviously you've got an employer and some of the stuff that you say, I was thinking like, oh, what if her employer sees this? But they obviously will, because it's there. So did you have to ever kind of discuss that with them or just say, look guys, like this is just who I am, this is who I am?
So I suppose this voice has always been consistent with who I am, and I suppose before the persona, if you will, of Corporate Agony Aunt was born, I was still this person. So I think that's not a shock to anyone. I show up as I am, and I'm fortunate to have worked in cultures where it's not overly corporate. So I don't feel like I'm performing like some of my friends probably have to do. I feel like I can be myself because I can't. It's who I am, and I'm quite outspoken and quite extroverted. So I wouldn't succeed in any other circumstance. But what I will say is two things. The first thing is that when I worked for Gary Neville prior to now at the university for 4 years, I was a full-time employee, and that is all I did with the occasional keynote. When I went on maternity leave, I decided to resign from the university instead of returning to work, and to allow myself some security financially, I set up freelance work as a result of that. Part of that was Corporate Agony Aunt. And so when I took the job with Gary this time around on the overlap as commercial lead, it was on the basis that I'm a 3-day-a-week employee there. The other 2 days I actually look after my daughter, but that I did have sort of my finger in a few pies because that is who I am and that's the era of my career that I'm in. But what I will say is my biggest message to employers moving forward is that if you want to retain top talent, and I identify myself as top talent, is that you have to consider that people have multiple passions, people might have multi-hyphen careers, and also that the age of just putting all your eggs in one basket and hoping that you get retained for 10, 20 years is no longer here with us. And if you really do want that top talent, you have to consider that they might have other interests. And in actual fact, empowering those means that you get the best version of them when they're your employee. That there are no blurred lines for me. When I'm working for the overlap, I am doing the overlap. But when I do my own work, I do that on my own time. And I go back to the overlap the week after with a new sense of motivation, probably new ideas, new networks, maybe new business revenue opportunities. So it's a mutually beneficial relationship, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree with that. I think that obviously not everyone on this call is from HSPG, but that's where I work, and a lot of the gals, I assume it's only gals on this call so far. I've not seen any guys turn up, but guys are welcome, of course. We often in interviews, we're like, what else do you do? Do you do anything else? Because I think as well, even if it's not necessarily income producing, even if it's like a really hardcore hobby sport that they love, that can also add all these extra things. Like you say, it gives you that boost to go back to work refreshed the next day. And also it just, for me, like really has that extra level of discipline, because that side thing, whatever it is, whether it's income producing or not, you have to motivate yourself and sort of be your own boss there. Whereas in work, obviously you've got a boss and you've got targets and you've got an employment contract that you have to honor. So yeah, absolutely agree. And I think I left my last job was if you had a side hustle, you should keep it a secret, and that people did not do that. And that is just, that's not reality anymore, is it?
It's not, but I do think that as much as employees we can advocate for these things, but employers are the ones that are going to have to drive change, because I think 2, 3, 5 years from now, the climate of employment will look completely different to where we are. And in a lot of instances, employers will favour freelancers, consultants, AI tools over a full-time fixed-term contract employee, and at that point they'll be the ones encouraging us to have a multi-hyphen career. So for me, I feel as though I'm getting ahead of that, and sometimes my wings get clipped, and that's okay, but I just try and operate where I've always got a sort of futuristic view on what employment might look like in the longer term.
Yeah, and just on that note, I mean, it's a bit of a sidetrack, but I'm interested to know what you do think. What do you think employment will look like in, let's say, 5-10 years time?
I do think technology adoption is an ever prevalent part of the sort of development of employment, but I think that with that comes like a lot more social mobility, hopefully a lot more accessibility, more ability to be free and travel and work from loads of destinations, loads of glamorous benefits. But I think if I was to look at it from a slightly critical perspective, the people that will come out best from these next 5 years of technological advancement and adoption in the workplace are the ones that are curious about it, read, understand how they can streamline and find efficiencies within their roles without feeling threatened by the fact that they might be making elements of their role redundant. You need to find new ways to add value. Stephen Bartlett at Flight Story, I've just read it this morning, he set all of his team a challenge to create AI bots, AI tools over a period of time to help automate and streamline their jobs and their workflows. I think something like 41 tools have been created, which will save the business money and time. and allow them to hire more effectively. So if I was in that business at that time, I would have thrown all of my energy into that because they were progressive. But if I was thinking in a smaller frame of mind with a fixed mindset, I might think, well, I'm not gonna do that because that's a risk to my job security.
Yeah.
It's only a risk if you don't have this growth mindset and if you can't keep thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead of how you can adopt technology into your role. But like I say, I truly think that full-time obligatory 9 to 5 at a desk work week will be disrupted continually over the next few years, as it was with the pandemic.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Okay, so looping back to some networking things, you've given a really good sort of overview of networking and a different slant, which I love. So question for you, do you remember a specific connection that actually changed your path and brought you to this point, and what made that happen?
Yeah, and I'm going to give you this one because this is like something that we'll all partake in. But there's been, honestly, Robin, I could give you like 100, but let me just give you this one because it feels less nerve-wracking. So I worked at a company called PHMG, and over the road there was a university being built that was always just in the back of my mind. I keep a unicorn list, which is a list of companies I would love to work for, and if the opportunity arose, I would always throw my hat in the ring, even if I was happy where I currently was. This company was on my unicorn list. And by chance, I went to a wedding that summer. It was my cousin's wedding, and I was sat on a table with another couple. I always ask people what they do for a living. I ask them who they are as human beings and who they are as human doings. And it's my way to actually like build conversation. I have a framework for that if I'm ever feeling nervous. And I was speaking to a lady called Stacey. She was telling me about her role at UA92, my unicorn company at the time. And she was head of marketing. Nothing came of that. There was no vacant roles. 6 months later, a role came up. And I knew I'd left enough of an impression. I knew I'd been sincerely curious enough that I could send her a message and say, look, I'm looking to apply for this role. I haven't got any experience in the industry, which it quite clearly stipulates I should have. Do you think I've got a chance of going for it? Do you think I'd be a culture ad rather than a culture detractor? And she said, absolutely, let me put in a good word. Let me help you with the process. And she did. And arguably, I could have gone into that process cold, but I didn't have that industry experience, so I probably could have quite comfortably been shortlisted, been knocked out of the shortlist at the start. But definitely her advocacy from that wedding where we were both drunk, arguably, and just chatting shit on the face of it, has actually unlocked a career opportunity that for me was like my first big role that I could be really intrinsically passionate about and also extrinsically rewarded in. That is just one. Honestly, I could tell you so many. It's so random. Yeah, I love the golden thread theory that there's always like you're always one conversation away from your next big opportunity, which is why I always say yes to things like this, because like there might be someone on this call, we might bump into each other in Cafe Nero, and the rest might be history.
Yeah, it's so true, and I do think it's so sort of fate and universe and whatever you want to call it. But yeah, definitely, and like you say, you're just at a wedding, sat next to each other, and being curious. And I'm very interested to know actually what is your framework, because that was actually something that I was going to come to. I think that you know, whether you're at a networking event or whether you're even just at a wedding, you know, it's so easy to just sit there and be with the other person that you know and sort of avoid everybody else. And also, I was at a networking thing the other day, and I actually don't love throw myself into these networking things. It is a bit cringe. But I also know, I think for me, it's like, don't leave this event and not have made use of it, because then you'll be pissed off with yourself. Like I went to London the other day and obviously left my baby at home and traveled to London. I was like, I'm not going to do all of that and not even meet anyone. Like I'll just be pissed off with myself. So I think there's that side of almost like making use of it. But then the other side, what is your framework to go to when you're feeling a bit nervous?
So firstly, I remind myself that everyone that's going to a networking event has the objective of getting something out of it. So it isn't cringe and it isn't weird. We're all in the same awkward level playing field where some people are definitely more, you know, more well-versed in networking. Those are the people I would personally naturally gravitate to if I felt nervous, because I know that they would know how to talk to me and work the room. So that's point one. Point two, around sort of getting to feel more comfortable and trying to get yourself out of the comfort zone of the person that you're with that you already know, is like tag team. team. So if you see someone who's on their own and you're there with someone that you know, go over to them and speak to them together and have that small talk. That small talk can be just started with a very simple question with, how's your day going? Tell me a bit about yourself, like something that's open, that's like anecdotal about the weather. It doesn't matter. Stop making it so serious. And the reason then that I talked about that framework of human being and human doing, like understand as a being, tell me about your baby, tell me about your trip to London today, tell me about what you do normally, what you're passionate about, who are you, like are you the eldest daughter, are you a mother, like tell me about yourself. And then as a human doing, like let's talk like really matter of factly, like what is it that you do for a living, how can I get involved, what can I do to help you, what are your biggest challenges. So I always try and lean into the personal before the professional, but typically I love talking to people about their work in any circumstance. My friends, especially locally, I think they think it's weird that I'll always ask them what their big goals are for the year ahead. They're like, we're fine, don't worry about us, Izzy, you don't need to put your like pushing mentality on us. But it's because I
do my performance review.
Yeah, I was like sat doing their appraisals at dinner and they're like, we don't do what you do. And I can understand that it's not everyone's cup of tea. My last thing to your point about attending something and feeling that you yield something out of it, I would never leave an event without having made a connection, whether that be via phone number, email, or LinkedIn, because otherwise like life is so busy and life moves so quickly that you just forget. So every single time I've ever met someone where I've had a decent enough conversation, I would always connect with them on LinkedIn, and I would always drop them a note that just said, look, absolutely love talking to you, like if you ever need anything, hit me up. And that might not yield anything for 10 years, but at least I've got that previous connection, that warm connection, if you will.
Yeah, definitely. And here's a question for you. How do you leave the conversation when you're like you said, you've almost like fallen into the comfort zone of standing with this person, and then you need to sort of, you know, be like, right, I'm going to go meet someone else now. Like what's the phrasing that you would use? Or
you've got two options, honesty or a white lie. The honesty is right, I must work the room. Robin, it's been absolutely gorgeous speaking to you. I'm going to circle back at the end, but I'm going to go and meet some more people. That's the honesty. The white lie is sometimes I'll do this because you just don't feel like you can segue the conversation. I'll just be like, I'm off to grab a cup of tea, I'll be back. Or I'm going to get to the loo and I'll come back and find you later on. So like sometimes I will physically go to the toilet just to cut that conversation off and come back again.
I did that the other day.
Yeah, because you don't ever want to be rude to you. And sometimes people will take up your whole night and you have to think, well, I'm here, I've left my baby at home, I don't really want to be in London, let me just capitalise on this really quickly. So like just have a cue that you rehearse on the train or the drive and you just know that you're going to say it. People might think you've got IBS, but who cares?
Yeah, exactly. Don't go near her. She's definitely got toilet issues.
She's been toilet 10 times. Something's wrong with her.
And just on the note of actually what you do, I would love to know, what does it mean to be the commercial lead at the Overlap?
I would like to know that also. No. So I'm responsible for all of our sponsorships and our partnerships. So winning new title sponsors for our new Strand. Strand is different podcasts that we launched on the channel. And then retaining the existing sponsors, understanding if there's any more opportunities to find additional revenue or to enter new contract terms for new seasons. So it's a commercial role. I think the term commercial lead is quite a flat structure, but it's probably closer to like head of commercial director, sales again. So not very like traditionally a field that women love to talk about or get into. But for me, it's sort of unifying all of those things that I enjoy conversationally and socially into a job where the industry is sport, which I can really enjoy. I can pretty much watch any sport and enjoy it, at an intersection of media, which for me is another example of how maybe I seem a bit contrived with my career path and planning, but I see long form media in the form of podcasts just continuing to grow and grow and grow, no matter what people say, no matter how bored people get of them. And so I really wanted to get that first-hand experience of like one of the biggest podcasts in the UK. This is the exposure that I need. So it was as much about the role and my comfort zone as it was about making myself uncomfortable in a new industry. I've never worked in the same industry twice, and I'm the biggest advocate for it.
Yeah.
Did I tell you what the job was? I don't know. Roughly. That was it.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. That was very clear. I understood that. I think also because I have a podcast, so I don't know if everyone else necessarily was on board with that, but I think that you said it very clearly. So, okay, thank you for that. Then back on personal branding, really, really simply, if I said to you, what is personal branding in a few sentences, what is it? And the reason why I'm asking that is because I think when we think branding, sometimes we think of, you know, a logo and some colours. So what is it with a personal brand? You don't need like a logo, it's something else, right?
Yeah, I would say, what is your invisible reputation? So, what are those things that aren't necessarily tangible, that I couldn't necessarily label you as, but how do you make people feel with your personality, your work, your presence? It's simply that. And the word personal branding has become so saturated, and I hate myself for ever having used it now, or ever having tried to coin myself as an expert in that. But it's quite simply your reputation. And that doesn't necessarily just mean digitally online on LinkedIn. It doesn't have to feel awful. It can like be your reputation in your local community again, or internally where you're working. I think the blurred line between the word personal branding and thought leadership is what people really struggle to grapple with. And I think as a woman in business, that my biggest advocacy is to be to others is to become that expert, to become that thought leader, and try and become sort of a credible voice of leadership within your industry to stay ahead. That isn't just shouting about your achievements via personal brand on LinkedIn. That's like attending the right events, reading the right publications, maybe writing your own publications, going above and beyond what is expected of you, what you are paid for the benefit of yourself, not the business, for your future career. So I think personal branding for me is simply about how can you scale your reputation to unlock more opportunities to learn and to lead.
Thank you for that. Very clear. And when should you start building your personal brand? Obviously, as you said, it's just you're doing it anyway within like the ecosystem of your business and your team.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's your reputation. Like, are you reliable? Are you outgoing? Are you a negotiator, a networker, whatever? When and how should someone start doing that a bit further afield, let's say for a long-term career perspective, like on LinkedIn, etc.?
Yeah, I'd say the best time to start was yesterday, and the second best time to start is today. So something so simple as coming to this event and sharing that you'd been at it. You don't have to share necessarily anything educational. You might not get anything out of it, but I hope you do. But if you share something that says you attended, immediately I read your post and I think, oh, she's invested in her own personal development. She's investing in her own progress. And it's the associations that you put out there for yourself that really matter. If you was to try and think about doing it more comfortably and less boastfully, if you're not used to that, it would be think about someone on this call. Maybe you connect with Robin, maybe you don't know Robin yet, maybe you don't know me yet. You connect with me on LinkedIn and you drop a note to say, great to meet you today. Something so trivial as that is like building those like invisible synapses between all of the people around you, and that's really how you build that network that allows you to build a personal brand and unlock future opportunities for your future self.
Okay, great. So everybody get on it yesterday. That's the action there.
Yeah.
And from your perspective, because you did just allude to this, like, what is the difference or the fine line, I guess, between sharing who you are and your truth and your personal brand and oversharing online, in particular LinkedIn? Because I know people get a bit like, oh, that's not really for LinkedIn.
Yeah, the oversharing piece is one that I struggle with, in that I am a natural oversharer. I've just talked about IBS on a call with however many people, but I don't have that. But I think the people's perception of me, because I share so prolifically across platforms, is that they know who I am implicitly, and they do not. So what you know about me is what I want you to know about me. I have so much going on in my life on any given day that would never touch the surface of LinkedIn. You will never see it on there. So I think it's about really establishing what it is you want to be known for and what you want to be well known for, and then like anything that doesn't really fit those pillars of what you want to become synonymous with, doesn't make it. So an example that some people, I think men, would probably perceive as oversharing on LinkedIn might be about your experience of maternity leave and motherhood as a working mom. Some people will not like that, but if that's something that you're willing to stand by, and if that's something that you think can advance your career, or it's something that you're passionate about, then by all means talk about it. That is not oversharing. But if you're sharing about something that is quite personal to you and there's no professional gain from doing so, you have to ask yourself, what are you doing that for? Why are you doing that? Is this the right place? Do we need to speak to a friend or a therapist? Like, let's not use that platform for that.
Yeah, definitely. And I actually had a bit of a task for everybody. So if you will, this will take you like 10 to 30 seconds, hopefully, to just think of 3 words to describe yourself if someone else was describing you professionally, behind your back, but in a good way. What would they be, and what would you want them to use? So if you just put them in the chat if you're happy to do so. And then I'll ask you a follow-up question on the back of that. And while everyone else is doing that, so whilst everyone else is thinking of their 3 words, Izzy, what would your 3 words be?
I was just going to play the game, but I'll think out loud. I would want people to say about me, and hope that people say about me, that I am hardworking, that I connect people, I'm a team player, and that I make people feel good. I don't take things too seriously. I think there was a time when I would want people to say I was super professional, but it was a pipe dream. So I want people to say that I was human, I was hardworking, and I was helpful.
Nice, love that. And I was going to say as well, get shit done. Good 3 words copy. Love it. Definitely accurate. I would, I validate that for you. Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. I forgot. With you, so we've obviously never spoken in terms of in voice, but I watched a lot of your videos on mute when I was like feeding the baby. So I feel like I actually, no, it was good. It was entertaining. So I feel like I got to know you, and I think that's really good. It's good feedback for you to know that you can get yourself across even when people aren't listening to you, because I obviously was on mute at 3 a.m. But it's so true. Like to have that message to kind of transmit to people, not just because you've told them, but because actually it just is who you are.
Yeah.
So let's look at these. Approachable, reliable, and professional. Deliver, trusted, customer-centric. Kind, hardworking, and opinion giver. Love these. Like organised, reliable, and approachable. Yes, love all of these. And I actually know you all, so I can say I agree.
I could have said anything. I could have said anything.
So then, what'd you say?
A natural mathematician.
Oh yeah, defo me there.
What's yours?
Mine would be people obsessed is number one. Leadership. So if I just have to package it up into one word, it would be leadership. And the third one would be culture vulture. I mean that in a positive way, but I feel like I've said that before, and Poppy, you told me that was a negative. But I basically am obsessed with culture as well. So that's what I'm trying to say. Yes, culture champion, exactly. That's, I know, I tried to make it into 3 words, Poppy. I did try.
Poppy's getting shit done as usual.
Yeah, exactly. So then on the back of that, everybody, you don't have to do it now, but I would challenge you to go and look at your LinkedIn and see, is this what I am transmitting to the world? You know, I've just gone off the chat now. Let me just go back onto it. So I'm just going to pick one. Lucy, team player, gets everyone involved, OCD. So I think that internally in like our team and our business, we would be like, yeah, that's definitely Lucy. But what about externally? If you go on your LinkedIn, and I'm not saying this is you, Lucy, but one may go on one's LinkedIn and it would just be nothing there apart from, you know, their job title, a bit about the business that's been copied and pasted from the website, and then that's it. And like your CV. And I think that, you know, obviously, like you said before, Izzy, in an ideal world, like employers would retain employees forever and ever, and everything would be great and lovely, and you know, everyone would stay here forever. But actually that's not necessarily best for the employees, and also it's just not the way that the world works. So definitely it's important to sort of sense check your LinkedIn on your words, and make sure that you are sort of make sure that you're putting yourself out there in a way that you actually want to. And, you know, even from the perspective of you helping other people, because I think that is also, it's also nice when someone approaches you saying, you know, I can really tell that you're such a team player. Like, I'm really trying to bring that more of that into my business and be a bit more OCD team player. Can you give me a few tips? And it's that also helps with your networking skills, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, definitely do that. And then yeah, just back onto then taking up space and owning the room, because I know that that is something that you're quite passionate about, and you've said that you take up space where faces like yours can be few and far between, so not like yours or mine, but like one. So
Yeah.
what does that feel like for you personally,
Yeah.
and what keeps you going in those kind of places?
So taking up space in places like where faces like mine are few and far between is more around, sometimes I think I make companies and colleagues and platforms like LinkedIn feel comfortable that I am the rule, when in fact I'm the exception. When an ethnic minority female who was relatively young until very recently is existing in leadership spaces, that is not the norm, that's not the common. So what it feels like when I walk into those rooms is I have two options. I can shrink, I can dull my sparkle, I can make myself feel smaller to accommodate other people's perceptions of what I should be and how confident I could be, or I can be my typical self, which is, I think the perception is that, and the term I use is that I'm the loudest girl in the room before I've even spoken, and that's nothing to do with volume, but it's to do with people's perception of me as I'm really tall, like I'm brown, I walk in and I'm loud before I've spoken, so I may as well leverage my loud to unlock benefits for myself and the people around me. So it's much less about going in and feeling completely comfortable and feeling comfortable being like gobby and yappy to people. It's not that. My comfort comes from knowing that there's someone in the corner over there that feels really quiet and really introverted and really uncomfortable, and I'm going to go make the same effort with them as I would with the person that's the loudest in the room and feels most comfortable in those environments. So for me, owning the room is much more about owning the individuals with it than it is about putting the spotlight on me and getting the attention, which I think is what people's misconception might be when I say I'm the loudest girl in the room. But it's much less about volume, and it's much more about the visibility that precedes me, quite frankly.
I love that. I think that that is such a good point. Be the loudest in the room before you've even spoken. Like, be confident and just
Yeah.
know that you are valid there in whatever
Yeah.
room it is.
Own how you show up, own the intersection that you operate. We're all representing different experiences, upbringings, privileges, or lack thereof. So own that as your narrative, your story, and be confident that you're just as worthy and just as capable as anyone else that you're amongst. And there was a Barack Obama interview really recently that I always watch back whenever I'm feeling a slight inferiority or I'm questioning myself. That's like, he was saying the higher you get, the more seats at the table that you get, the more you realize how many people are just absolutely winging it. And I am always met with that. I'm always thinking, how are you even here? Why am I questioning my own ability when I'm sat next to someone that is just a nepo baby? Like, what's going on? So like, always reminding yourself that, like, one, there's other people in the room that will also feel inadequate. So your feelings are valid, I understand them. But two, there are people in the room that should feel inadequate and don't. And therefore, you should really own your power and your own potential, because there's other people that are faking it when you're actually very credible in your own right.
Yeah, it is a very, very good point. And I would say, everyone, to that, check back on the last couple of She Owned It that we've done, because we did a whole one on self-worth and, you know, self-esteem versus self-worth, and how you can really sort of lean into that and start building it up. So, and we left some actions on each one, which I genuinely think will really help with all these kinds of things, and the sort of imposter syndrome situation and everything like that. So there's really things that you can take from these sessions that will build you up, really, whether it's in a room or whether it's on LinkedIn or on a Teams call or whatever it is, and will help you in your career and with your personal brand.
Mm-hmm. I think self-worth and understanding what you actually want to feel successful is really important, and I think a lot of people don't work out that calculation. Sorry, someone's walking past with a big gardening tool. But I think a lot of the time that we feel inadequate or inferior, or we compare our trajectories to other people around us, maybe the person sat next to us or our friend, is that we've not actually been able to quantify what it is that would make us feel like we were successful, what it is that would make us individually feel like we've achieved what we wanted to. Because if you think back to your yourself, maybe 18, 15, 10 years old, think about where you are now. Like, younger Robin would be so impressed by older Robin. And I just think really understanding that we are where we're meant to be, and everything we ever wanted is probably everything that we have now in most instances, that allows you to turn up with a bit more like self-worth and security, and like well, I am exactly where I'm meant to be. This is where I'm meant to be. But like, getting to the bottom of your own success helps you unlock your self-worth a lot more.
That is such a good point. And I think I was thinking this the other day because I was looking at my 3-year-old having a tantrum, thinking like, oh, I wish you could just be, obviously she's 3, so it's different, but it made me think, I wish, when you're like 15 and you think literally the world is ending because, you haven't got the right genes, that you could have a bit more of your your mature brain of, let's say, me age 35 that I could give to 15-year-old me. So what is it about like us aging that then makes you just by this age or older, you just think like, I literally just don't even care anymore? How can you get that a bit earlier?
I don't know. I hit 30 and I was like, oh my God, I'm not even bothered. Literally anyone can say anything to me and I'm unflappable, and maybe to a fault now. Can you hear that? Sorry, he's gone now.
No.
Okay, good. As long as you can't hear it. I don't think that you can give yourself a longer term view any earlier. And in fact, the actual gratitude that we might have now for our life comes as a result of thinking it was all going to end when you were 15 or having that tantrum at 3 years old. So I always think about that with my daughter as well. How can, when she gets her heart broken by her first boyfriend, how can I let her know that that's actually a really good thing and he was an absolute scumbag? Like, she's 18 months old. These things are just an inevitability, and we just have to look back and think. One of the quotes Gary always says to me when we talk about resilience and mindset and appreciation and overcoming things is, his psychologist said to him one time, did you honestly think every single day of your life was going to be a good day? And when you think in days like that and you think just so pragmatically, you're like, oh yeah, that was a bad day, but did I honestly think everyone was going to be good? Like, I'm still living the life that younger me would have been absolutely perplexed by. So it is what it is.
I'm making a note of that. That is a really good
Garyism.
A really good quote. Yeah, good Garyism.
And
I wanted to just like touch on that because I feel like I'm someone that's never really like been bothered about what other people think of me, whether they know me or not. But as I've actually got older, gone over the 30, definitely still not really too bothered about what people think of me of who don't know me. But I feel like I've started to be more bothered about those who do know me and I do work with, or maybe I do associate with, or I'm friends with, how they feel about me or how they think about me, which I think I've only realized that maybe within the past 8 months that's definitely a change in like growing up for me.
I've been,
and I don't think that's an older thing.
No, I think I've really thought about that also, because I'm much more, makes me sound like a bad friend, but I'm much more caring and intuitive now with my friends, in that I'll check in a lot more than I ever would have done before, because I was a bit more like self-minded. But I think what I've realized so far, my 30s have been the best decade ever. You're happier, you're healthier, you know who your friends are, you know who your friends aren't, and that's really gorgeous. I always say to my best friends now, we're not meeting any more people at the same rate that we met each other. This is our lot on the most part. We might meet one or two, I might get myself into Robin's circle next week and never leave, but fundamentally we are going to have the same small group, and that can be colleagues, that can be family members, that can be friends. So I think as you get older, you become a bit more conscientious and a bit more considered in the fact that these are meaningful relationships that have on the most part stood the test of time, and we're not meeting anyone at any great rate anywhere else. So it's like we sort of care a bit more to invest in them a bit. I don't know, that's how I feel. I don't know what you feel, Poppy.
No, that is a good view. Because like you say, meeting new people, even if you do meet new people, they've got their own friends where you can't even see them again for another 4 months anyway. Like that's
and also the other thing is, like, from a work perspective, as you get more invested in not even necessarily the business that you're in, because obviously that's not the permanent thing, but you as a working person, you're more invested in maybe your own personal brand and your own personal reputation. So as that grows, you're more conscious of sort of doing anything that doesn't align with that. So then you would be more conscious maybe of how people felt because of that.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree with that.
If anyone else has any questions as well, feel free to dive in. So I'm going to ask another question, which is so I know we said the best time to build a personal brand is yesterday/today, But how can someone do it if they don't feel like they're influential yet, or maybe feel even a bit? I remember, I hope you don't mind me saying, Poppy, but when we did a LinkedIn workshop in work maybe a couple of years ago now, and we all had, you know, our homework to do and everything, and Poppy was like, I just can't do a LinkedIn post, like I'm not doing that. And obviously now she has done LinkedIn posts and she's got out of that of that like restriction. But if people feel like that, like I can't even post anything on LinkedIn, it's just too scary, where should they start?
Poppy, how do you feel now you've done it?
I mean, I don't really do it. I'm much more of a person, like I'd rather sell myself to you over a coffee or in person. So I also think like it comes with like knowing what you're good at, like what are you actually talking about? So like Robin said, like she's a culture vulture, so a lot of her posts are thought leadership, talking about people, leadership, etc. I feel like I'm just like good at like lots of random things, but never 100% at something that I really want to voice my opinion on. So it's kind of like I don't know what my niche is, you know. But
I feel the same way. I'm a real generalist, so it's hard to like niche down and be like, I'm gonna put my stand on, I don't know, something very specific. I don't have enough interest in anything, I feel. But what I would say is I think we all think that we're a lot more boring than we actually are. And that's like a big barrier that you actually have to overcome. So I would think back to that context of meeting that girl at that wedding. Had I not spoke to her about my passions, my interests, my hobbies, I call her that girl, she's my friend now, Stacey. If I hadn't spoke to her about those things, she would never have learned about me. She found those things compelling and interesting enough to help me on that next step of my career. So like things that we take for granted as really trivial about us or boring, maybe we love our cockapoo, maybe we do Hyroxes, maybe we have absolutely no passions other than baking. Like those things are interesting to some people. You just have to find the medium in which to voice them. So I think you need to get out of the headspace of thinking that you've got nothing to say to no one, because we're not trying to speak to everyone and we're not trying to be all things to all people. We're just trying to find the common ground in the people that have shared values or interests or hobbies. Robin, your question was, what do you say to the people who feel like they can't just get started? I would say start really small, and it could be something so simple as, in my phone, whenever I'm feeling like I'm lacking confidence, I have an album and it's called That Bitch. You can call it what you want. You can call it whatever you want. You can call it That Girl. You can just whatever you want. But every single time I've done anything of merit, that could be something so simple as like, this is a bad example, helping my sister with A, B, and C. She sent me a text to say thank you. I'm going to screenshot that. I might have won something so silly, and I can't think of any examples, but my whole album of That Bitch is like a reminder to myself that like I have done all these things. I'm capable of all of them.
You need to do a picture now for That Bitch.
I know. This is what I need, prime example. But what happens is then you look back at the themes of what it is that you're proud of and what you actually are doing all the time, and you're like, right, family is really important to me. That's a frequent feature in this album. I'm really good at hyping my friends up when they've got an idea and it's in its infancy, and I can help them get it from that to a live business. Like you start to see the themes and the trends of like where your little bit of niche of the internet is, if you will, and that helps you formulate what it is that you actually can talk about or want to talk about. But I think back to what I said earlier about like human being and human doing. So like really sit down and ask yourself, who am I as a human being? What do I stand for? How do my family know me? What does my neighbour think of me? Like, what am I passionate about? And then do the same for human doing. And those things and how they meet on that page, those are the things that make you you. Those are the things that you could talk about. A really boring but easy example quite recently for me is like, I realized that I'm in the podcast industry and that is cutting edge, and I'm quite like, I was like quite being too humble about it and not thinking about it in the fact that I'm getting access to information that a lot of people would want to know, and I'm not sharing that. So I've tried to like dive a bit deeper into sharing more about podcasts. That's not about me. I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about the industry itself. Talking about social mobility or social housing. Previously, I was working in education. I was really passionate about helping underprivileged young people go to higher education, those who were in receipt of free school meals. None of that was talking about me. I was talking about this and demonstrating that that's my passion by educating others on the same subject. So like, it doesn't have to be, I have won this swimming competition. It could be like, I really like this business is doing great stuff, let me share my spin on that. I think I was really long-winded then, sorry, but what I'm saying is you're also interested, and you're all much more interested than anything.
Yeah, no, it is a very good point. Because like you say, you know, when I went to this networking thing the other day and I told people what I did and they were like, wow, that's amazing. And I was like, yeah, she is. Great. Pretty good. So I think that sometimes you always need to get out of your own bubble of like, oh, this is what I do every day, like bored of myself, because no one else is bored of you. They've not even spoken to you yet.
In the That Bitch album, on maternity leave, when I was having a mad wobble about like what I was even good at, because you're just doing nappy changes and you can't, I was like, what's my purpose? I remember like messaging a few friends like, what am I actually good at? Like, don't blow smoke up my arse. Like, what do you perceive me as actually being good at? What do you see as my skill? The messages I got from that were actually transformative, like another time in my life where my network changed my life, because that was what gave me the confidence to think, oh, I'm going to resign from UA92. I'm not going back there. It's really weighing me down. It's messing with my confidence. I'm going to start some freelance work. And my friends telling me they know I can do it because I'm the hardest working person that they know, or I'm the most well-connected person that they know. And if they were stuck in prison in Guatemala, they would call me. Like those little silly anecdotes that maybe as the agency I have as a person, that's why I'm sat here talking to you today. So you have these people, I call them my board of directors, they're my friends, but they know me implicitly, personally and professionally. And ask if you don't know, ask someone else. Someone next to you knows.
Yeah, but I love that. I'm just gonna, you might want to pause the recording for 1 second. I just want to Google something on the back of that to tell people. So okay. I don't want to waste the time. So maybe pause it just 1 second.
I'm intrigued.
Keeping you all in suspense. 1 sec. It's basically a TED talk that I heard, and I actually think this was transformative for me to hear this TED talk, and it was by a lady called Stacey Flowers. And it's annoying, I can only find the TED talk. I'm gonna try and remember it off the top of my head, but I would definitely recommend, you can restart if it even paused, I don't even know. It was about the 5 different types of people that you need to have in your network to be able to actually like smash your network. And it was like, in terms of like your closest 5 people. So it was a coach, so someone who was gonna like really be honest with you, like you just said, and not blow smoke up your ass and actually say like push you along. It was your cheerleader, and that's you know, the person who probably isn't really actually going to tell you anything honest, but they're going to really tell you everything's amazing. Like maybe for some people it's your mum, like literally walking in a plastic bag with like greasy hair that you've not washed for 7 days and poo on your top from your baby, and she's like, you look amazing. So that's your cheerleader. Then you need a mentor, which I'm pretty sure she described as like someone that you pay. So, you know, it's someone that you're actually paying to give you advice and to train you. And it's not someone who it's like basically someone who you've paid them to help you, essentially. So they're like totally totally objective and removed. I can't remember the other 2. So it was very good when I heard it, but I can't remember it. So I would definitely recommend to. There's a teaser on the TED Talk, and everybody go and watch the rest.
I'll do that with the homework from this session.
Yes, definitely. Okay, so I'm going to ask you one more thing, and then guys, gals, if you have any other questions, then feel free to write it in the chat. So yeah, just in terms of you now, obviously you said you've got this unicorn list, and you don't have to tell me who the companies are, but can you tell me like a couple of different industries that are on there?
They're quite heavily in the media space, to be fair, at the moment, but that's because of my own personal interest in how I can grow Corporate Agony Aunt into more of a media education piece, because I think my goal, I've started whispering it and I've started to say it more loudly, is to revolutionise career advice, because I just don't think it's readily available. And it exists, the services exist in antiquated systems, in places that we don't access. So I want to revolutionise career advice. Maybe I'll start with the UK, so it's a more achievable location. But in doing so, I think there's a few high-profile people and individuals, some of which, you know, I'm connected with and speak to, that I could work for, that would help. You know, I would get more exposure, I would learn more, but also it would, like, synonymously, by association, would drive my trajectory as well. So that sounds really contrived, but having worked
that's really interesting.
Yeah, 5 years now, like, the way he works, his mindset, his start of his career in sport, and then learning all the business acumen throughout, is like such a great lesson in, like, not staying in your lane and not keeping your head down and working hard and not shouting about what it is that you're up to. So I've definitely really appreciated these last few years, and I think if I was to make a next move, I'm pregnant again, I'm going off on mat leave, and then I'll go back to the overlap for certain. So if my boss is watching this, you've got me for a while, but in a few years, it's either the flexibility to work more for myself and on retainers for companies like the overlap, or another big household UK entrepreneur name, most likely, so I can feel as though I'm getting those lessons and that level of personhood from them as well.
Yeah, Gary Neville's amazing. I love Gary Neville. He is just a great guy.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I don't like to give him too many compliments, but he's good.
With Gary, I'll just tell you, and other people definitely know this already, but I'll just tell you, when I had him, like, on my wish list for my podcast. So I have a few people that are like, you know, never going to get these people, but they're on my wish list, and he was one of them, which is a bit silly in hindsight, because, you know, he's based in Manchester, and
you did get him.
But anyway, and I did, exactly. So but I basically, like, I went to networking events, and, you know, when people say, like, just say who you're after trying to kind of connect with, and maybe someone here will know, and I always used to say Gary, and then, you know, maybe I went to someone was like, oh, go to this tonight, I think he's going to be there. So I then went, and obviously he wasn't, and blah blah blah. This was probably for like a year, and then it was in lockdown, and it was the day, I remember, it was a Tuesday, it was the day that restaurants had opened, and they did it on a Tuesday, I think, to make sure it wasn't like absolute chaos. And I literally was walking down the road, and I heard him. I walked past him, and he was ordering a pizza at Rudy's Pizza outside. And I walked past, and I was like, oh my God, that was Gary Neville. I didn't even need to look. I just heard his voice. And then I turned around, and then I carried on walking. I was like, I can't. And then again, similar to the story from last week, I was like, I cannot walk past him. Like, go back now and speak to him. So I turned around, and I went back, and I was like, hi, Gary. And he was just like, okay, you're a bit intense. And so we were chatting, whatever. And this is how stalkery I was. So that morning, I had also been sort of watching the TV over my husband's shoulder, who had him on Sky Sports, because I think he did something with Sky Sports like every single day in lockdown. And so it was one of those chats. And he was saying how his daughter had just cut his hair. So, like, I knew that literally his daughter had just cut his hair, so I was asking him about that, and he was like, do you want a picture? And I was like, no, but I want you to be on my podcast. And he was like, oh right, okay. So he was like, I wasn't expecting that. So then he put me in touch with his PA, and then we chatted. I got him on the podcast, and I'm friends with her now as well, and she's great. And it's just, it was like, it really wasn't comfortable for me to go back and speak to him. It would have just been so much easier for me to just carry on walking, because it was just, you know, he could have just been like, can you just go away, you weirdo? But yeah, so there's my Gary story and networking.
I think that's the most gorgeous lesson, in saying out loud what it is you actually want. Because again, we're like, so people like, oh, I want Gary Neville, but I'm not going to get him. Well, if you'd have had that mindset and never spoke about it out loud to people, and never had the impetus to actually tune in to what he was saying on Sky Sports that morning, like, you wouldn't have known, you wouldn't have seen the cues that you needed to see on that day when you heard his voice stopped at Rudy's. It is quite a common accent. Like, I don't think it's like necessarily an accent that stands out so much. So, like, the fact that you set that as your goal and then spoke it into existence, like, I sound so wishy-washy compared to how quite hardline I am, but I'm such a big believer in, like, speaking things out loud. And I didn't tell you the full story just earlier, but like the reason I'm doing this house renovation and boring people with it and blah 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 blah, and creating this sort of digital life and income streams for myself, is so that when my husband finishes his medical training, we can go and live around the world and like do 6 months in Sri Lanka with our children and homeschool them. And like, I have a really clear vision of how I want my life to look. And until recently, I was like quite small about that, because I thought people, especially locally, wouldn't understand it. And now I just talk about it quite freely, because I think, well, that's the only way I'm going to get there. That's the only way you're going to actually take the leap of faith. And had you not spoken about it to so many people, you wouldn't have turned back that day at Rudy's and gone to speak to him. But you had to. You felt like you hold yourself to account, kind of thing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That's the thing. It's like you've kind of owned it already. So if the opportunity comes, you absolutely can't like literally walk past it.
No, you'd have let yourself down. I'm proud.
Thank you. I'm very excited to hear more about your 6 months here, 6 months there homeschooling. I think that sounds really cool as well. So yeah, thank you so much, Izzy. It's been amazing to speak to you. And I know that everyone, I don't even need to ask everyone, I can speak on everyone's behalf to say that I know that everybody else has loved it too. But yeah, feel free to obviously comment in the chat, guys. So yeah, thank you so much for your time. And obviously you're very, very busy. You have a toddler, you're also pregnant, you're also work, like you're a superhero. So yeah, thank you so much and have an amazing day. And everybody else, we have one more She Owns It, which is next month. I'm not going to say the date because I'll get it wrong. I know it is next month, but maybe someone can write it in the chat. And yeah, we'll send out more information nearer the time.
Nice to meet you all.
Thank you so much to everybody.
Bye.
Bye.